What if I told you that one of the most popular strategies in modern ice fishing is a complete waste of time for 90% of the people who use it? We see it everywhere. Guys with high-speed augers flying across the ice on snowmobiles, drilling dozens, even hundreds of holes a day. They call it run and gun. It looks impressive. It feels productive. But is it really about finding fish, or is it just an excuse for not knowing how to read the water in its frozen state? In this video, we're going to expose the truth behind the run and gun philosophy. I promise you, by the end of this, you'll understand why a quiet old timer sitting on a bucket in one spot often goes home with a heavier pail. We're going to reveal the reason so many hard-working anglers fail, and it has nothing to do with their gear or their effort. So let me ask you this right now. Is run and gun a legitimate tactic, or is it just a high-tech way to stay busy while the real fishermen are catching fish? Let me know in the comments. Let's be honest, the run and gun approach didn't come from nowhere. It exploded in popularity with the rise of modern technology. We got lighter, faster augers. We got incredibly detailed GPS mapping on our phones. And of course, we got advanced sonar and flashers that promise to show us every single fish under the ice. Suddenly, mobility became the name of the game. The old way of fishing, finding a promising spot based on a paper map and some shoreline observation, then patiently waiting, started to look slow and outdated. The new gospel was, don't fish for fish that aren't there. It makes sense on the surface. Why sit on an empty hole? The problem is, this philosophy created a generation of anglers who rely completely on what the screen tells them, forgetting the foundational skills that have put fish on the ice for centuries. They stopped learning how to read the lake itself. They trust the machine more than their own instincts and observations, and that's a dangerous trap. First, let's properly define run and gun as it's commonly practiced. It's a high-tempo, aggressive strategy. The core idea is to cover as much water as possible to locate active, biting fish. An angler will drill a series of holes, sometimes in a grid pattern, drop a transducer, and check for fish on their flasher. If they see a mark, they'll fish it for a minute or two. If there's no mark, or the mark they see doesn't immediately bite, they're gone. On to the next hole, then the next, and the next. The entire day is a whirlwind of drilling, checking, and moving. Picture it, the constant roar of the auger, the frantic pace, the belief that the very next hole will be the one. This method prioritizes quantity over quality. Quantity of holes drilled over the quality of the spot itself. It's a numbers game based on the assumption that if you just drill enough holes, you will eventually, by sheer luck, drop your lure on top of a hungry fish. It's a physically demanding and often noisy approach that many anglers have come to see as the only way to be a serious modern ice fisherman. Now let's contrast that with the art of reading the ice. This is a completely different mindset. It's a slow, deliberate, and knowledge-based approach. It starts before you even leave the house by studying a contour map of the lake. You're looking for points, inside turns, saddles, and sunken humps. When you get to the lake, you don't just race out to a random spot. You look for clues on the surface. Where are the pressure ridges forming? They often form over underwater structures. How does the snow cover look? A wind-swept bare spot might indicate a high point, like a rock pile or a reef, where the current is slightly stronger. You're using your eyes and your brain first. When you finally choose a spot, you don't just drill 100 holes, you might drill 3 or 4, strategically placed to investigate the structure you've identified. This method is about understanding why fish should be in a certain area, rather than just hoping they are. It's fishing with purpose, not with panic. It's the difference between a detective solving a case and someone just randomly kicking down doors. The run-and-gun strategy has a powerful psychological hook. It makes you feel incredibly productive. You're constantly moving, drilling, and working. At the end of the day, even if you caught nothing, you can tell yourself, well, I gave it my all. I drilled 200 holes and covered 5 miles of the lake. It feels like you were actively hunting, not just passively waiting. But here's the trap. Being busy is not the same as being effective. You could spend all day running back and forth in a parking lot looking for a lost set of keys, but if they're sitting on your kitchen counter, all that effort is for nothing. The same applies on the ice. All that noise and commotion can actually be counterproductive, spooking the very fish you're trying to catch. The quiet satisfaction of figuring out a spot and having the fish come to you is often replaced by the frantic and ultimately empty feeling of a day spent just making noise and ice chips. It's a strategy that rewards effort over intelligence, and that's a poor trade-off in fishing. Let's talk about the flasher fallacy. Modern electronics are amazing tools, there is no doubt about that. They give us a window into the world beneath the ice, but they can also be a crutch that prevents us from learning. The run-and-gun angler is often completely tethered to their screen. They drop the transducer, and their entire decision is based on a simple, binary question. Is there a red line on the screen or not? If yes, they fish. If no, they move. But the flasher doesn't tell you the whole story. It doesn't tell you why a spot is holding fish. It doesn't tell you if the fish you see are actively feeding or just lethargic and negative. It doesn't show you the subtle weed edge just a few feet away that might be the key to the whole puzzle. By only looking for the immediate reward of a mark on the screen, you fail to learn the underlying structure and patterns of the lake. You become a video game player, not a fisherman. The true masters use their electronics to confirm what their knowledge of the lake already tells them, not as a substitute for that knowledge. So, does run and gun ever work? Yes, absolutely. There are specific situations where it can be incredibly effective. Let's imagine a scenario. It's early ice, and the walleye are still aggressive, actively cruising large, featureless flats in search of baitfish. They are on the move and they are hungry. In this situation, sitting in one spot is a low percentage game. The fish are not relating to a specific piece of structure, they are roaming. Here, drilling a large number of holes and moving quickly between them dramatically increases your odds of intersecting with one of these cruising packs of fish. You're not trying to attract them to a spot, you're trying to find their constantly changing location. This is the classic application of the run and gun strategy. And when the conditions are right, active, roaming fish over a large, uniform area, it can pay off big time. This is the success story that fuels the entire philosophy, the one that everyone remembers. But here's the critical point that most run-and-gun advocates miss. The scenario we just described, highly active, roaming fish, is the exception, not the rule. For a huge portion of the ice fishing season, especially during the midwinter doldrums, fish are not like that at all. They become lethargic, their metabolism slows down, they hold tight to specific pieces of structure, like the corner of a rock pile or a small patch of green weeds. They aren't going to chase a lure, and they certainly aren't going to be found cruising out in the open. They are conserving energy, and they are often in a negative or neutral mood. Trying to use a run-and-gun strategy to find these fish is like trying to hunt a sleeping deer by running through the woods, screaming. You're not only unlikely to find them, but the noise and commotion you create will ensure that even if you do get close, they'll stay put with their mouths firmly shut. Basing your entire winter strategy on that one specific hot bite scenario is a recipe for a lot of long, fishless days. Let's consider another case study, a big school of jumbo perch in midwinter. You found them on the map, a deep mud basin adjacent to a sharp drop-off. A run-and-gun angler might race to the spot and start punching holes everywhere. The noise of the auger reverberates through the water. He drops his flasher in and sees a massive school. He gets excited, drops his lure, and maybe catches one or two right away. But then the school gets nervous. The noise and the commotion have put them on edge. They start to sink to the bottom. They stop chasing. The marks are still on the screen, but they won't bite. Frustrated, the angler moves a few feet and drills another hole, creating more noise. The school either moves off entirely or develops a severe case of lockjaw. The patient angler, however, would approach this spot quietly. He'd drill just 2 or 3 holes, then wait. He'd let the area settle down. By fishing quietly and patiently, he can keep the school under him and happy, picking them off one by one for the next hour. The run and gunner got a couple of fish. The patient angler gets a limit. The art of observation is a skill that is being lost, and it's a shame. It starts the moment you step on the ice. A true student of the lake is constantly gathering information. Look at the shoreline. A steep bank on the shore often means a steep drop-off under the water. A long, tapering point of land likely extends a long way out under the ice. These are basic but powerful clues. Look at the snow. As we mentioned, wind-blown areas can signal underwater high spots. Deeper, slushy snow can indicate a spring or an area of slightly warmer water, which can attract bait fish. Look for old holes. Where have other people been fishing? It doesn't mean you should fish right on top of them, but it tells you what other anglers are thinking and where the community spots are. This is all vital information you gather before you even think about starting your auger. A run-and-gun angler often has tunnel vision. They are so focused on getting to their first spot and starting the drill-a-thon that they walk right past a dozen clues that the lake is giving them for free. The most important part of reading the ice actually happens on your couch with a hot cup of coffee. It's about doing your homework. Pull up a good digital or paper contour map of the lake you plan to fish. Don't just look for your favorite spot. Try to understand the lake as a whole system. Where are the main basins? Where are the sharpest drop-offs? Where are the large, shallow flats that will hold weeds? Trace the creek channels. Find the inside turns, which are natural ambush points for predator fish. A run-and-gun angler might just look at the map and pick a random hump to start drilling on. A thinking angler will look at that same hump and ask questions. How does it relate to the main basin? Is there a saddle connecting it to another piece of structure? Which side of it is likely to hold fish based on the time of day and the position of the sun? This pre-trip planning allows you to create a high-percentage game plan. You're not just going out to drill random holes, you are going out to test specific, well-thought-out theories about where the fish should be and why. Once you've drilled your hole, the observation continues. It's not just about what you see on the flasher. Take a look down the hole. How clear is the water? In super clear water, fish are going to be much spookier, so a stealthy approach is critical. In stained or dirty water, you might need to use lures with more rattle or vibration to call fish in. When you bring your auger up, look at the ice shavings. Are you seeing bits of sand or mud? That tells you you're on a soft bottom. Are you seeing little pieces of chopped up green weeds? That's gold. Finding green weeds in midwinter is like finding an oasis in the desert. It produces oxygen and holds tiny aquatic insects and baitfish. A run-and-gun angler might drill a hole, see no marks on the flasher, and move on, completely missing the fact that he just found the most important spot on the entire lake. He's looking for fish, but the smart angler is looking for fish habitat. Find the habitat, and you will eventually find the fish. Patience is perhaps the most underrated virtue in ice fishing. In our world of instant gratification, the idea of sitting still and waiting can feel like a failure, but on the ice, patience is a powerful tool for gathering information. Let's say you're on a good-looking spot. You've been there for 20 minutes and you haven't had a bite. The run and gun instinct is screaming at you to leave. But the patient angler waits. Why? Because fish move in cycles. The walleye you're targeting might only have a 15-minute feeding window every 2 hours. By staying put, you ensure you're there when that window opens. Furthermore, by sitting still, you can learn about the spot. You might notice that a tiny flicker on your flasher every 10 minutes is actually a school of minnows moving through. That's a crucial piece of information. The predators will eventually follow. The run and gun angler, in his rush to the next hole, misses all of these subtle but vital clues. He never stays long enough in one place to let a pattern develop. Let's talk about something that gets almost completely ignored in the run and gun playbook: noise and vibration. Ice is an incredible conductor of sound. Your auger drilling into the ice doesn't just make noise in the air, it sends powerful vibrations down through the ice and into the water column. To a fish, especially a wary walleye or a big crappie, that sound is like a thunderclap. It's unnatural and alarming. The same goes for stomping around on the ice, dropping gear, and running a snowmobile or ATV right over your spot. A run and gun approach is, by its very nature, a noisy one. You are constantly drilling and moving. You might be marking fish on your sonar, but they are fully aware of your presence. They are on high alert. This is why you often see fish on the screen that come in to look at your lure but refuse to bite. They are curious, but they are also spooked. A quiet, deliberate approach minimizes this impact. You drill your few holes and then you let the area quiet down. You give the fish time to forget you are there, which makes them infinitely more likely to bite. One of the classic run and gun tactics is the grid pattern. The angler goes to a large flat and drills holes in a perfect grid, maybe every 30 or 40 feet, to systematically cover the area. On paper, it seems logical. It's an organized way to search a big, featureless piece of water. But in reality, it's often a massive waste of time and energy, and it creates a huge amount of fish-spooking noise. Fish rarely distribute themselves evenly across a flat in a way that a grid search would efficiently find them. They will be concentrated in one tiny area, maybe a spot where the bottom content is slightly harder, or where a small school of bait is holding. You could drill 100 holes in a grid and miss that key spot by just 10 feet every single time. A better approach is to use your map study and a few strategically placed exploratory holes to try and identify that key area first. Then you can focus your efforts there. The grid pattern is a brute force method when fishing almost always rewards a surgical, precise approach. It's crucial to understand how fish react to fishing pressure, especially the kind of pressure that a run and gun strategy creates. When a fish is spooked by the noise of an auger or by seeing a lure dropped on its head for the 10th time that day, it doesn't always just swim away. Often, especially in cold water, they will do the opposite. They will hunker down, they'll press their bellies right to the bottom or tuck themselves so deep into a weed bed that your sonar can't even pick them up. They enter a negative defensive state. The run and gun angler drills a hole, drops his transducer, sees nothing, and moves on. He assumes there are no fish there. The reality is the fish might be right under his feet, but they are hiding from him because of the disturbance he just created. They haven't left the area, they've just gone into hiding. A patient angler who lets the spot rest might see those same fish reappear on his flasher 30 minutes later, once they feel the threat has passed. This is something the run and gunner will never see because he's already half a mile away, drilling his next noisy hole. The true secret to consistent ice fishing success isn't finding the big, obvious community spots. It's about finding the spot on the spot. This is a tiny, unique feature within a larger piece of structure that concentrates fish. It could be a single large boulder on a rock pile. It could be a small patch of sand in the middle of a mud flat. It could be a fallen tree on a drop-off that you can only find with side imaging or an underwater camera. These are the micro spots that hold the majority of the fish, especially the bigger, smarter ones. You will almost never find these spots by running and gunning. Discovering them requires a slow, meticulous process of investigation. It requires drilling a hole, taking your time to read your electronics, and even using a camera to see what's really down there. The run and gun approach is all about the macro view, covering the lake. But the biggest rewards in fishing almost always come from mastering the micro view, understanding one small area better than anyone else. So, how does a thinking angler decide when to move and when to stay? It's not a random decision, it's a calculated one. You stay put if you have a good reason to believe fish should be there. Your map study told you this is a high percentage spot. You saw signs of green weeds when you drilled. You're marking bait fish, even if you aren't marking predators. These are all reasons to have confidence and to wait out the slow periods. You decide to move when the spot has given you definitive proof that it's not going to work. For instance, you've been there for 2 hours, you've fished through a major feeding window like sunrise or sunset, and you haven't seen a single sign of life. No bait, no fish, nothing. Or perhaps the water you thought was deep is actually shallow. The spot has been invalidated. The move you make then isn't a random jump across the lake. It's a calculated move to your Plan B spot, another area you identified during your map study. It's a move with a purpose, not a move born of frustration. Now, it's important to state that this isn't a black and white issue. The ultimate strategy for a truly elite angler is a hybrid approach. It's about combining smart, patient observation with targeted, efficient moves. You don't just run and gun, and you don't just sit and wait. You study and verify. You do your homework, identify 3 or 4 high percentage areas, and create a game plan. You go to your first spot, drill a few holes quietly, and give it a fair shot. You spend a good amount of time there, an hour or 2, really trying to figure it out. If it doesn't produce, you make a decisive move to your Plan B spot. You repeat the process. This isn't the chaotic, frantic drilling of a classic run and gunner. Each move is a deliberate test of a hypothesis. You are using mobility as a tool to investigate the handful of spots you've already determined are the best on the lake, rather than using mobility to search the entire lake at random. This is the difference between being a strategist and just being an athlete. We need to officially debunk the mantra that more holes equals more fish. This is one of the biggest lies in ice fishing. While it's true you can't catch fish from a hole that has no fish under it, the quality of the hole's location is infinitely more important than the quantity of holes you drill. One single hole drilled on the X, that perfect inside corner of a weed line, is worth more than 100 holes drilled on a barren, featureless flat just 50 yards away. The time and energy you spend drilling those 99 extra holes could have been spent fine-tuning your presentation in the one hole that mattered. It could have been spent swapping lures, changing jigging cadences, or simply waiting patiently for the prime-time feeding window. The angler who drills 5 holes in the right spot will always, and I mean always, outfish the angler who drills 200 holes in the wrong one. The goal is not to drill the most holes. The goal is to make every hole you drill count. Finally, let's consider the real-world cost of a run-and-gun strategy. We're not just talking about the cost of gas for your auger and your machine. We're talking about your most valuable and limited resource on the ice, your time and your physical energy. A full day of aggressive running and gunning is exhausting. You spend hours pulling an auger, clearing holes, packing up, and moving. By the time the critical evening bite window arrives, you might be too tired to fish effectively. Your focus wanes. You get sloppy. A more deliberate, thoughtful approach conserves that energy. You do the hard work with your brain first, studying the map. Then you make a few smart moves. You arrive at the prime evening spot with plenty of energy and focus left to capitalize on it. Is it more exciting to drill 150 holes? Maybe for some. But is it a more efficient and effective way to use your precious few hours on the ice to actually catch fish? In most cases, the answer is a resounding no. Ultimately, this all comes down to a fundamental mindset shift. It's about changing your goal. The goal of a run-and-gun angler is to find active fish. The goal of a thinking angler is to understand the lake. One is a short-term goal, the other is a long-term investment in your skill. When you focus on finding active fish, you have good days and terrible days, and you often don't know why. When you focus on understanding the lake, every single trip, even the ones where you don't catch much, adds to your knowledge bank. You start to see the patterns. You learn how fish in that specific lake relate to weed lines, rock piles, and current. You are no longer just a hunter blindly chasing your prey. You become an ambusher. You use your knowledge to predict where the fish will be. You set up quietly in the perfect spot, and you wait for them to come to you. This is the path to becoming a consistently successful angler, not just a lucky one. It's a more rewarding and far more effective way to approach your time on the ice. So, let's bring it all together. Is the run-and-gun strategy just an excuse for not knowing how to read the ice? For many anglers, in many situations, the answer is yes. It's a tactic that feels productive, but often just amounts to spooking fish and wasting energy. We've seen how it's a specialized tool for very specific conditions like aggressive, roaming fish, but it's a terrible master plan for the entire season. The real turning point, the aha moment, is realizing that success isn't about drilling more holes. It's about making each hole you drill matter. It's about trading the roar of the auger for the quiet confidence that comes from map study, observation, and patience. This shift from a frantic hunter to a calculated ambusher will completely change your results. You'll spend less time working and more time catching. You'll go home less exhausted and more often with a story to tell. Thank you so much for watching and for taking this deep dive with me. If this video made you rethink your strategy, hit that like button and subscribe for more content that challenges the conventional wisdom of fishing. Now, for the final question, I want you to answer in the comments. After hearing all of this, are you on team run and gun or team study and wait? Let the debate begin.